Um, my name is Kate Colson. I am an instructional technology specialist or an educational consultant from ESU 3. And we are going to be talking just some basics in Google Classroom. Um, so when I am screen sharing, I am not seeing you guys as much. So if you want to unmute yourself, I can hear you then. Or if you put the question in the chat, I'm going to let Matt or Bridget or Robbie kind of shout those out if you want to put your question there, just so I want to make sure that, because right now I can't see you as well. So
and I can also see the hand raises too.
perfect.
So
Yep.
yell that out.
Any of those options. So don't feel, if you have a question, don't let me yap on and on and on. So I can answer those. So this first spot, and the slides are linked on that agenda that Matt just shared. So the title of the session down by the description, that will take you to these slides that I'm showing there. And there are some additional resources in the speaker notes, those kind of things. So if there's some support kind of videos, extra kind of things, I tried to put those down in the speaker notes. So Google Classroom, let's just get started. Let's see here. There we go. Okay, so if this is your first time in Classroom, a couple of easy ways to get there. Classroom.google.com is super easy. Also, if you can find that app launcher or grid or waffle or cube or whatever it is you call it, if you can find that in any G Suite tools, usually the Classroom icon is there. It's this icon here in the corner is what the icon looks like. So if you can find that in that app launcher tool there, sometimes it's not in those upper ones, so you might have to click more to find it down at the bottom, but you can always rearrange those and put it where you want it if you're a regular Classroom user. Once you get to classroom.google.com and you get all signed in and all those kind of things, a couple of things, you've got that pancake menu in the upper left corner, or some people might call it the hamburger menu because it kind of looks like a hamburger with a bun there. That will take you to your classes homepage. And so you can see your classes tiles and those kind of things, which are what these things are. So all of your classes there, you can rearrange those as you want, drag and drop them where you want. Those little three more dots in the upper corner of the class tiles will allow you to delete or archive the class, any of those kind of things that you might need to do on that class's homepage. And so it's a really great way for you to be able to navigate within your classes. Also within that pancake menu, you have a to-do list. So as a teacher, if you are teaching classes, you have a to-do list and it will bring up all of your things that you have to grade or things that have been submitted, those kind of things. If you are enrolled in a Google Classroom as a student, so let's say your administrator has a classroom set up for your professional learning in your building or something like that, or your PLC has a classroom together and you are technically a student in that class, there would also be a to-do list for your students. So it kind of has your teaching classes in one section and your classes that you're enrolled in another section. So there's different to-do lists there. Also in that pancake menu that's very important is the classroom settings. So your settings for your classroom experience as a whole. And the major part of that you'll want to take a look at is the email notification. If you've ever used Classroom even a little bit, you will notice that if you have all the email notifications turned on, it can be very overwhelming. So you might want to go in and adjust what email notifications you get and what ones you'd rather not get. And so all of that is within that pancake or hamburger menu in the upper left-hand corner. All right, so once you've got your settings the way you want, now you're ready to start and add a class. So to create a class in the upper right-hand corner, when you're on that classes homepage where you can see all those tiles, if you have any classes already done, there should be a plus in the upper corner and you click on it and you should see join class or create class. Your students would only get join class, but you as a teacher should get create class. If for some reason you don't see create class and you only have the join option, you're going to have to phone a friend. So probably have to get with Matt and make sure you have the right settings so that you can create a class, because only teachers can create classes. And then you just have to name it, and there's a few other details that you can put in there if you want, and your class is ready to go. Once you get your class ready to go, you should be able to go into the settings for that class. So once you get it loaded, there'll be a settings gear, and you can adjust things about your stream. Here's where you can make sure that Guardian summaries are turned on so that your parents can get some information once you've put in their contact information. And then you can also set how you want grades calculated in Classroom. But I want to make sure that you are aware that your Classroom gradebook and your PowerSchool gradebook are different. Your Classroom gradebook is not your official gradebook. So I generally just leave that grade calculation turned off. I don't really do a whole lot with a grade calculation just because that's not your official gradebook and there's no connection between the two in any way. So you do have those grade calculations set in there, but I usually just go in and say, don't calculate the overall grade and just kind of leave that part off. Okay. Next, so when you sign into your class, this is your stream. Okay, the stream has some pretty important information. One, it has your class join code. And so I've got it kind of grayed out here, but that would be the code that you would share with your students to get them in. And it even has a little button here where you can show it full screen. So that would be the quickest and easiest way to get your kids in classes. If you're there in person, just show the class code up on the screen and have them join. You can also email that class code to them, just copy and paste it in an email and however you're communicating with them. Or there's another way we'll talk about here in a little bit how you can actually invite students. So if you have younger students, or there was always some years where I knew, okay, these 2 or 3 students, putting in the class code is just going to be more pain than it's worth. I'm just going to invite them so they don't have to enter anything. So you can kind of do that on a case-by-case basis. Other things that you can do right here on the stream, you can change your banner. So right here at the top, they've got some pre-selected ones, or you can upload your own photo if you have a banner photo. Also on the stream, you can post announcements, so those timely reminder kind of things that you might want to do. So you just type your information in here. These little circular arrows here on the side, you can use to reuse an announcement. So if you had one from before and you want to reuse it, you had one from a class from last year and you wanted to reuse it, you had one from a different class and you wanted to use it here. So you can reuse any of those kind of things. In announcements, you can add attachments as well. There's kind of some 4 basic attachment types that we'll talk about here in a little bit, and you can use those here as well. Once you've got some announcements there, you can add class comments to them, so it can kind of be an ongoing discussion there. Your students can add comments if you give them those permissions in your settings for that class. And then you can also hit those 3 little more dots, and you can move it to the top. So maybe you've had 2 or 3 announcements and there's one that's kind of gotten buried, because this is reverse chronological order. So if you've got one that's buried and you want to bring it back to the top, you can click on there and you can say move to top, and it'll move it right back to the top. So when students sign in, they can see it right at the beginning and it's not buried down at the bottom. You will also notice
absolutely. I think Tammy's got a question here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tammy, I unmuted you here so you can.
No, I just missed the beginning, so I wasn't sure how how you could raise your hand on that. That's all the only question I had. Because I
thought it was
I have no other
what Kate was talking about.
No.
All right. Also on the stream, if you put assignments in the classwork tab, they will be posted here. I think Bridget will talk about how you can adjust what kind of information, but know that by default, they will show up here as well. So sometimes your announcements will kind of get buried in there as well. So that's the stream. Skipping to the people tab, here's where you can add co-teachers. You can have up to 20, is I believe the number, 20 teachers in a class. And so if you have a specialist that's in your class with you, if your principal wants to be added as a co-teacher, co-teachers have all the same rights as a teacher, except for one thing they can't do. They can't archive the course. But anything else, they can assign work, they can assess work, they can view work, any of those kind of things. And so you can add the co-teacher right there. Right there, the little person with the plus, that's how you can invite a student. So if you didn't want to give them that join code, you can invite them there. Here's where you add those Guardian emails. So when you click on this for a student, it will pop up a place for you to enter the email address for their parent. And what I would do is just copy and paste that straight from PowerSchool and put it right in there, so you don't have to worry about miskeying or any of those kind of things. And then the Guardians will get an email inviting them to get those. I believe by default it is weekly summaries, and it basically says here what was assigned, here's your student's work. And it will, if the student is in more than one Google Classroom, all of those will be put in there. The nice part is if some of your colleagues have put in Guardians already, so sometimes you might come in here and for some students, you'll see this invite Guardians. And sometimes you'll see some email addresses in here. So once that email address is added for that student, it sticks with them in all of their classes within Classroom. And the other thing that's very helpful in the People tab is these actions. So if you click on 2 or 3 students or 1 student or however many students you want to click on, you just check the box next to them and you click on this actions button, you have 3 options that you can do. You can email that group of students. You can remove the selected students. So if someone got in your class and they dropped or they moved or they got in there by mistake, you can always remove them. And the one I really find helpful is the mute button. So if you have a student that's just struggling with some online behavior and they need to spend some time in the penalty box, you can mute them. They can still submit work. They just can't make comments, any of those kind of things. And then maybe you can have an individual conversation with that student about maybe appropriate commenting, those kind of things, review your expectations, and then you can go back in and unmute them. It doesn't send them any warning. It just removes that commenting feature for them. So kind of a little place for you to have that penalty box there should you need it. All right, let's get into that classwork tab because here is where the bulk of your classroom work is going to be. A couple things about the layout of this. You'll notice at the top right up here, you can get to the Google Calendar for your class. So anytime you have due dates, it will get added to Google Calendar is created for this class. And so you can see those things on a calendar. There's a Drive folder for this class. And so you can get straight to it there. And all of that is created automatically. You don't have to do anything to do that. You can see your topics on the side here. So if you want to filter your assignments by topic, because as you're starting to use this, it will get pretty messy. So if you want to say, I just want to see the assignments about careers and jobs. And so you can go to that and it will just show you those assignments with that topic. If you have something that you're working on and you're not ready to assign it to students, you can save it as a draft. And so you'll see this is what those drafts look like. They're kind of grayed out and it will say draft on the side. And down here are your topics and your assignments. So this right here, like this word this week here, that's a topic. And here's some assignments below it. Here's another topic and some assignments below it. The nice part is you can drag and drop these things. So you can drag and drop topics with all of the assignments under them and put, so if I wanted career and jobs to be above this week, I could just click on this and drag and drop it and move it up. I could move things within here too. So if I want this Holocaust one to be the first one they see, I can rearrange those and you can drag and drop all of that. If I need to rename topics, here are those 3 more dots again. You can click on those and you can rename a topic. So if you decide you want to name it something else, so maybe instead of this week, maybe I change that to last week if that's not current anymore. So you can do all of that. And then here's that create button. So here's how you create assignments, all kinds of things that we will get to here in a second. So here's that create button. When you click create button, a couple of big ones. Assignments is going to be a big one. These are those graded kind of things. And I use graded in air quotes because you can make them ungraded, but they're that assignment kind of thing. You have some enhanced attachment features with an assignment, and you have some student feedback options with that. You can also ask a question. So if you have that one question you want to ask them, either it be a short answer or a multiple choice question, you can ask a one question thing and they can respond. You can create a material. So it's not something that's an assignment graded where you want that student feedback. So it'd be something, a material would be something like a syllabus or resources that you want for them. And so you can share that with them. And then you can also reuse a post from here. So if I assign something to my first hour class and I want to assign it again to my second hour class, I can reuse that post from first hour. I could also reuse it from my section last semester. So I've archived the class. I can pull from an archived class even and say, I used this assignment last year. I want to reuse it this year. And you can reuse that post and not have to completely recreate the wheel. Once I decide I want to reuse the post, you can edit it. So if I want to change the wording a little bit, or maybe last year I learned some lessons, I want to take most of it, but then I want to delete this last part and put in something different. You can edit that once you've selected it for reuse. Okay. So once you assign an assignment, you click on create, you say, I want to create an assignment. This is that assignments creation window that shows up. You do have to put a title in there. That's required. You can put in instructions if you would like. Here's where you can add some of those attachments. And when you click on add, you have 4 attachment options. You can pull something from Google Drive. So as long as you can get it in Google Drive, you can assign it or include it in an assignment. You can put a link. You can put a file. So if you have a file on your computer, maybe it's an image file or something like that, or you could put a YouTube link. You can have multiple attachments per assignment. So maybe you have a Google Doc that you want them to have for resources for that assignment. And then you have a Google Doc that you want them to complete. And then maybe you have a link to a website that has some helpful information. You can have multiple attachments. You just keep adding, clicking add. You can also create if you want. So if you haven't already created it, you can create any of the Google tools. So doc, sheet, slides, drawings, any of those kind of things. When you do attach something and you attach something from your Google Drive, you have some enhanced options for how that looks for students. So here's an example. Let's say I added a Google Doc to an assignment. I have 3 options for when I add things from Google Drive. One option is the students can view the file, so they can just see it. So maybe it's a resource that I don't want them to be able to edit or do anything with it. I just want them to be able to see it. You can give them editing rights. If you say students can edit the file, that means all students can edit the file. So you could have, 25 students all in the document or all in the spreadsheet at the same time, or maybe all in the slideshow. So maybe they are doing a collaborative slideshow. So that's everybody can edit the file all at once. The one that I love is that third one, make a copy for each student. So if I do this, I would have a starting document. Maybe it's a worksheet that I've put in Google and I've made it kind of googly and I've done all those things to it and I have it ready to go and I want my students to complete it. If I say make a copy for each student, it will take that template and make an individual copy for each student. It will also facilitate the sharing. So if Matt is in my class, it will share Matt's copy with Matt. He can edit it, and as soon as he turns it in, it removes his editing rights so that he can't edit it again once he's turned it in. Okay, so it kind of does that, and it does that for every student. It just facilitates it. It's so nice. It puts it all in a document for you. It handles the naming structure. So it puts the student's name and then the assignment name with it. It's just super slick. I do want to point out that make a copy for each student works for more than just docs. I feel like that's the one where it's most used, but it will work for all of these file types. So if you have those in Google Drive and you assign them in Classroom and attach them to an assignment, you can do that make a copy for each student. Excuse me. For each student for all of those file types. So that's an important little nugget that you aren't just limited to docs if you want to do that, make a copy for each student. Okay, some other things about that assignment window. You can.
Kate, there was a question in the chat. Is there a limit of 20 attachments?
I don't know. I've never hit a limit, but I've never tried to push that limit. I know I've had 4 or 5 and had no trouble. So I suppose if you hit a limit and you needed to, you could put a link to a folder if they needed multiple resources or something like that. So there can be some ways you could kind of hack around if you did hit that limit, whatever that limit might be. But I've had 4 or 5 and never had a problem. So. Okay, so the assignments window, some things on the right-hand side that are important. You can assign to multiple classes at once. So if you have multiple sections, you do the assignment once. You say, I want to assign this to first, third, and 7th period. It does it all. Or you can assign it to selected students in one class. So if I want to say like these 3 students need this assignment, just these 3. Nobody else needs this. So you could really differentiate in that way. One thing to note, you can't assign to selected students in multiple classes. So I can't say, these 3 students here need this, and these 4 students during this class period need this. It's either multiple classes or selected students. Then you can set things like the points, or if you click there, the little drop-down arrow, you can say it's ungraded if you don't want to put points with it. You can select the due date. Here's where you set that topic if you would like. There is a rubrics feature, so you can create and reuse rubrics. We'll talk about those in a second. And then you can also turn on originality reports. And if you turn that on, you can use it to check student work for authenticity. I know there's a link in the slide notes about originality reports. There's some limits on languages, file types that it works on, and you have a limit. You only can do 3 originality reports per course. So you kind of have to be selective about what 3 you might want an originality report on. So it just checks to see what kind of their work, how it compares to work that's online. It does not compare student to student, although they are beta testing that right now. So that's a relatively new feature. So there's some links in the slide notes there if you want some more information about that one. Once you have it all ready to go, you can assign it right now, or you can click that little drop down arrow and you have some options. You can assign it right now. You can schedule it. So if you say, I want this to come out Thursday at 8 a.m., you can schedule that, or you can save it as a draft. And then you can come back to work on it later. So if maybe I have everything ready to go on Sunday, and then I go in on Monday morning and I decide when I want it to be released, or if I'm working on it, but it's not ready to go, you can always save it, or you can discard it if you need to. Okay. Once you've assigned it and now all of your student work is starting to come in, this is kind of what that looks like. You can, once you click on view assignment, then you can see work by submission status. So who's turned it in, who is still working. You can get to the Google Drive folder for the particular assignment. So that's a quick and easy way to get straight there, and it will show you all of these documents that they're working on right there in Drive. You can also click on any student work to view the student file. So if I clicked on this one, I could open up and see that student's work. What I love about this is that I can look at it once it's turned in. I can also click on any of these that are just assigned. So I can look at student work while it's in progress. So I could be giving them feedback while in progress. I don't have to wait for them to turn it into me in 2 days. I can be giving them feedback in a timely way right when they're working on it. So that's awesome. And so if you did make a copy for each student, or if you had them create something within the assignment, you could be viewing it while it's in progress. And then when you're ready to give them some feedback, once you click on their assignment, you'll notice their work is here in the middle. So this slideshow behind here would be an example of student work. You can arrow through to advance through the student submissions and kind of click on the next student, or you can use this little drop down arrow here and you can navigate to a specific student. Here on the side, you can see all the student files that were included in the assignment. You can enter the points. So if it's a graded assignment, you can say, Matt earned 10 out of 10. If I did a rubric with it, this is where I would assess the rubric. And then I can also send a private comment to the student. That's an important differentiation to make there. If you're making class comments, that goes out to the whole class. If you're making a private comment, that's between you and that individual student. So some comments are just not meant for everybody. So you want to make sure that if you are intending a private comment, that you're putting it where it says private comment. And then you can return your student work right up here, and it just says, do you want to return it to them? And you say, okay. And once they get it back, then they can edit it if they wanted to. But then it just kind of facilitates that return to them. Just a couple final tips and reminders. That gradebook, or that grades tab in Classroom, is not your official gradebook. So PowerSchool is. So any grades that you might put in Classroom are not official. They're just kind of that feedback loop. But you could absolutely use Classroom and never put in an actual grade anywhere. You could make everything ungraded and then just put your official grades in PowerSchool. So completely up to you how you navigate that. Yeah, make sure you designate between class comments and private comments, as I said. Every assignment has a turn-in button or a mark as done button. And so if your students are not marking, like not clicking that turn in or not clicking mark as done, it's going to show up to you like they are still working on it, that they haven't done it. And so if that might be part of your procedures that you work on with students, is to have them do that turn in button. The mark as done button would be as if they want to turn in something, but there's no attachment with it. So you could absolutely make Classroom your main learning home for your students. And you could tell them, go do this offline activity. When you're done, come back here and click mark as done so that I know you've done it. And so it's almost like a check mark. Yes, I've done that. And so it just kind of helps you on your end so that you can see what's done, what's not. So making it part of their routine to do that. Make sure you always check out that pancake or hamburger menu. There is hidden gold there. And anytime, this is not just a Google thing, any resource where you see those 3 dots that kind of look like a snowman, those are those 3 additional more dots. There's even more hidden gold there. So I would say anytime you see those 3 dots, click on them and see what other kind of hidden gems are in there. So highly encourage that. I linked right in here, there is a first day in Classroom resources. So if this is your first time using Classroom, they have a bunch of targeted videos. So if you want to know how to do just this skill, they've got some great getting started in Google Classroom resources there straight from Google. And then always when you are in Classroom, in the lower left-hand corner of your window, there'll be a little question mark. And if you click on it, you can see this little menu. So if you're in there, you're like, man, Classroom looks different. What the heck happened? You can always click on that what's new and it will show you some of the new updates that have happened. If you need to report an issue, or if you have this idea like, oh, it would be great if Classroom could do this, you can request a feature and request it often and get your friends to request it, because that's how they do updates in Classroom. They really look at that feature request. So if you've got something you want to suggest, request and request often and get others to do so as well. And then there's the Help Center and the Help Community. You can always search for additional resources, but that's where that help that's usually within most Google tools, it's hidden there in that little question mark, and it'll always be in that lower left corner of your screen. All right, so if you have any additional questions, I know this was very fast and furious. Hopefully this was just enough to kind of make you a little bit dangerous. Matt and Bridget are always available to help you. Robbie and I are also available to help you. We do have Westside emails, but I would say we probably don't check them as frequently as we do our main ones. So I included our emails here, so you can always email us if you have any questions that you would like some help on. You want to do some follow-up individual support. You're like, hey, that half hour was great, but I'd love you to sit side by side, maybe 6 feet apart, and we can kind of walk you through some things. Would be more than happy to do that. Or if you need some beta test, I kind of encourage people to have a sandbox class. So if you want some beta students in there, we'd be more than happy to help you facilitate that and help you beta test some things as you're giving things a try. So, are there any other questions or anything like that? My wait time, yeah, I was gonna say my wait time in person is awful. Online, it's even worse.
One quick one, Kate.
Yeah, absolutely.
If I add people as teachers, can they in turn add other teachers, or does it just one person that has that ability?
So you're saying if you have the course and you add someone as a co-teacher, can they add other co-teachers?
Yeah.
Yes, I believe so. I'm pretty sure the only feature, if you weren't the main person who created the course, you can do everything a teacher, you can't archive it.
Okay. Thanks.
Absolutely. You bet. Any other questions?
I do. I'm wondering, I'm a reading specialist, not a classroom teacher.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So would it be best for me to be a co-teacher and assign things to students, or would you suggest making my own classroom and adding students? Does it matter?
It really doesn't, although I would say it might be more helpful for students and parents if everything is kind of in one place and they have the same thing. And then you could have your own topic. You can assign it just to the students that you're supporting. Or, maybe if the teacher assigns something, you could go in and make some comments to the students to help support them or scaffold theirs in a different way. So
if I created a topic, would the whole class see it?
The topics are only visible once there's an assignment underneath them. And if the student, if student A doesn't get that assignment, I don't think they will see that topic. That might be something I've never tested to see what they see when you assign it just to selected students. So if you want to test that out, we can certainly.
Yeah, well, I'm just wondering, like, for confidentiality reasons.
Absolutely.
And things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, I might want to test that out.
Yeah. I'm going to make note of that so I don't forget.
Okay, thank you.
A follow-up question to hers. I'm a special education teacher, so if I set up my own classroom and I did the just to keep myself organized, and I did all the assignments there, as long as they were a Google Doc, couldn't I also share it with the teacher and they could just put it in? Am I thinking that correctly? Okay.
And I've seen some, depending on how big your team size is, I've seen some where you get together with your grade level team at your building and you create kind of a template course between each other. And so I could assign it to our template class. And then I could reuse that post from the template class for my main class. So if you kind of want to share that workload, I've seen some teachers that they will get together with those that birds of a feather kind of group. And so it's a kind of a way for us to share the workload So maybe I do the math assignments for this week, you do the reading assignments for this week, and then we reuse each other's assignments and those kind of things. So you could absolutely do something like that too.
Okay, great. Thank you.